Hi, I'm the Moorlander and this is Moorlander EDC. Now, I've been excited to bring you this for a while. You had a sneak peek, kind of a sneak peek, last weekend, no not last weekend, the last EDC collab group video that, we all produced. A flashlight I brought to you in that was from Rovyvon. Now, Rovyvon, I really do think are one of my favourite flashlight companies. I think what they are creating and the different styles that they've got, and they've got lots for different types of uses, but I think for that EDC pocketable light, they really are on top of the game. So I've actually got 3 lights to bring to you today. All have similarities, all have subtle differences, and all have quite a few large differences, but what we are here today to look at is the E3, the E3 Pro and the E5 torch from Flashlights. I suppose they are the Angel Eyes E5 hybrid flashlight. I mean, there's quite a long name there, so I'm just going to stick to E3, E3 Pro and E5, but these are really nice flashlights, especially in the way that they have been designed around the batteries, which we will have a look at. And as usual, I'll turn the camera around to make sure that we can take a closer look at these. But whilst I'm doing that, if at any point you do enjoy this content, please feel free to hit the like and subscribe. And if you do that, if you choose to do it, I'd certainly like to say at this point, I'd like to say thank you for, that was a hiccup, it wasn't a burp, I promise, but I'd like to say thank you for either liking or subscribing. It certainly means a lot to my channel. Okay, now let's turn the camera around and take a closer look. Okay, so as we usually do, we'll go through some measurements, we'll have a look at some of the materials involved, and then we'll have a look at some of the features of these, so that you're all up to scratch with which ones that we have here. On the left, this is the Angel Eyes, or the Rovyvon Angel Eyes E3. We then have the E3 Pro, and then we have the E5. There are other versions of these. I think there is an E8, there's an E1. They all have different things, but they all have certain things in common. Mainly it's to do with whether it's a full metal case, whether it is a polycarbonate case like this, and then other slight differences in some of the features within inside and the ways that the batteries are set up. Now, as far as similarities are concerned, on paper, these are all the same size. So they come in at 66.1 millimeters by 27.5 millimeters, and they're 13.5 millimeters deep. Now, I stress the fact that that is on paper. If you put these two against each other, now the E3 and the E3 and the E3 Pro are identical in size. The E3 and the E5 is ever so slightly longer. I mean, it's not really anything to write home about. It's maybe a millimeter and a half longer. I'm not sure why. I mean, I'm just, this is pure guess. Maybe it's as this is a polycarbonate body, maybe they had to add an extra few millimeters just to make sure that the sides were reinforced enough for it to, be stronger. But then, originally they started with them all the same length, but it is just ever so slightly longer. As far as the weight of all of these are concerned, the E3 and the E3 Pro, these are exactly the same in weight, and they come in at 32 grams. And the E5 is just slightly heavier. It's only 9 grams heavier, so we're not really going to break the bank on this one, coming in at 41 grams. That's kind of a lot of the similarities. Well, I suppose not really similarity because they weigh differently. These two here are both made from aluminium. I'll come back to those in a second. The E5 is made from a mix. It has an aluminium top here, and then the bottom is made from a glow-in-the-dark polycarbonate. So if you were to shine a light on this, which we can do here, we can charge that up, and then hopefully you can see there that it is glowing in the dark. Now, the E3 and the E3 Pro, on paper, both aluminium, and they're both pretty much, well, in fact, they both are identical. The bump up with the Pro is the E3 is made from 6063 aluminium, and the Pro is made from 7075 aluminium, so it's just a nicer, higher grade aluminium on this one, and that really is the main difference between those two. The other differences that you may have possibly spotted on this are that the E3 and the E3 Pro both have a single button for the single button operation, whereas the E5 has this button does exactly the same as these two, and the second button operates some of the additional functionality that you have here in the body. Now, for all intents and purposes, the E5 is pretty much the same as the Rovyvon E3, which, I mean, I genuinely love this mini flashlight, this mini torch. I think it's absolutely amazing. But the main difference, and I think this is where they share the same name as well, so that's the A5 and the E5. The main difference between them is when you can look, and you can definitely see it more so in this one. It has a 330 milliamp hour LiPo battery within it, but it also has an alkaline battery in there as well. Now, I'm just going to open this one, mainly because that one's, it's so hard to get open. These two are a little, you need to get your thumb in there. Once this opens, so this small catch here on the side, this locks this head into position, but then when you rotate the head, you'll be able to see that the AAA battery just pops up here, and you can put your AAA battery in there. Now, the LiPo battery that's in this, really you should consider that to be your main battery. You know, that is the one that you're going to be doing the most with, whereas your AAA battery is your backup. So if for any reason this runs out of battery, then you can put a new AAA battery into there, and then you can continue to use that. There is actually a function that you can swap between the LiPo and the AAA battery, but because the AAA battery is really there to be your shit hits a fan, damn, I have not been able to get this charged, I can pick up a AAA battery from anywhere. To make sure that that AAA battery lasts a little bit longer, when we have a look at the lumens that come out of here, you'll be able to see that the lumen levels when it uses the LiPo battery are a lot higher than the lumen levels when it uses the AAA battery, mainly for that instance that when your LiPo battery runs out, you want to make sure that you get enough light and you can still use the light from this, that it just bumps down some of those settings to get longer out of the AAA battery. Now, to go to some other similarities between the E and the E3 and the E3 Pro, everything on here as far as the layout of the buttons, there are some LEDs on here. So if I bring this up and we get this in focus, hopefully you'll be able to see that there are two LEDs. The first one at the top says LiPo, and the one at the bottom says AAA. So in fact, I might as well show you now. So when it's on, if you just have to do a single press and it puts it into moonlight mode. When it's in moonlight mode at the moment, in fact, let's just turn it back off again. When I turn this on, hopefully you'll be able to see that little light, the LED appears there, and we're in moonlight. Once you're in moonlight, and you have to do it whilst it's turned on this moonlight mode, if you do a triple press, and then while I'm doing the triple press, hopefully you'll be able to see that this LED lights up. Oh, sorry, I've just gone out of focus there. You'll be able to see that the bottom LED lights up. So 1, 2, 3. So now we are in AA battery mode. 1, 2, 3 puts it back into LiPo mode, and then press it again and it'll turn that off. Now, as far as where these LEDs, they're exactly the same between the E and the E3 Pro. And then here on the back, so I'm happy to say that we're starting to get some now with the USB Type-C here on some of the Rovyvon lights, which is great. So here at the bottom, you have a USB Type-C charging port. You also get a cable that's included with this as well. I'm also really happy to report, so one of the issues, and not a massive issue, I certainly don't want to take anything away from Rovyvon, I am a massive fan of their lights. Some of the older lights, the plugs for the charging ports, when these are injection molded or however they're done, there used to be just a little lip on them that you just, if you left it on there, you'd find after a few days that it would just push itself out. But if you got a sharp scalpel and just took that little lip off, then, you know, they just sit in there until you need to pull them out. Now with these, the E3, the E3 Pro and the E5, when you push these plugs into the holes, they sit in there, and for the entire time that I've owned these, they've never come out. So I'm really happy with this. As far as their IP dust and water ratings, the E3 and the E3 Pro are IPX7, and I'm so struggling. I'm getting my E's and 3's and 5's. So, and the E5 is IPX6. Now, as far as the layout of these LEDs and the charging ports on the E3 and the E3 Pro, they're identical. With the E5, they are changed around ever so slightly, and I think that must be to do with the fact that these additional lighting modules are in there, because on the back of here, when you turn this around, this was where the charging port would be on the E3 and the E3 Pro. It's no longer there because they've had to use this space. So instead, it's come here onto the side. It's another USB-C port, which again the plug fits in there, absolutely amazing and has no issues. But through the polycarbonate you can now see that the charging port goes through into here to where the battery is. So the two LEDs that were on here to the side of the function button have now just moved to here at the top. So if I turn this on, hopefully you can see we are in moonlight mode. Oh, press the wrong button then. Sorry, let's turn it off. Let's put it back into moonlight mode. 1, 2, 3. And there you can see we've changed to triple A. 1, 2, 3. We've now changed back to LiPo. Now on the E3 and the E3 Pro, these buttons do exactly the same. In fact, even on the E5, this button here in the middle does exactly the same. And it's a series of either long presses, short presses, clicks, double clicks, and so on that you tend to find with these style lights. So if you hold it down and keep it held down, this is a shortcut through to the high mode. On the E3 and the E3 Plus, this is 700 lumens. And then you release your finger and it comes off of there straight away. From off, if you then do a single quick press, this then puts it onto the moonlight mode, and the moonlight mode from this is half a lumen, and you get quite a nice bit of light out of this considering it's still only half a lumen. I say this a lot, but I generally tend to find that through a lot of the things, the EDC kind of stuff that I do with torches and flashlights, I tend to use moonlight mode and low mode the most. Then a press, and then that will turn that off for you. Now, I have also said, and I've said this a lot in the past, I'm more of a fan of double click for on, mainly because you just don't accidentally turn it on in your pocket. Whereas with this one, even though it is a single click for on, the fact that you're in moonlight mode at half a lumen, you're getting about 54 hours worth of battery out of this. So if you did leave it on and it was an hour or two before you noticed that it was off, at least you can turn it off and it's not going to set fire to something in your pocket. Now to get to the main kind of light modes, I guess, so you can do a double click and then it will put on the light mode. So I think at this moment it's just come on to high, which was the last setting that it was on. But to go through or to scroll through the modes using the function button here again. Oh no, so that was on medium, so you can go through, you can scroll through them. So we've got low, which is 10 lumens. You've then got medium, which is 100 lumens. And then you've then got high, which is 7 lumens. Now, as I mentioned before, the lumens that come out of this when it is in the AAA mode are slightly different, because you need to think of that AAA battery really as your backup battery. So if I put this onto moonlight, 1, 2, 3, we are now in the AAA mode. So I'll turn that off. So if I double click to put this on, let's make sure that we're in the low mode. So the lumens that come out of this now when you're on the AAA battery instead, when it's on low rather than 10, it's now on 5 lumens. We go up to medium, rather than 100, it's now 20 lumens. And then we're on 700, it's now 100 lumens instead. It's still a good amount of light, and it still means that if you're in a situation that you need to get somewhere and have some light, or to be able to do something whilst you're doing that. It just makes sure that you can certainly do that, so that you can then get it charged. Yeah. So now, oh, still got that on. Now, as I mentioned, I keep saying as I mentioned. I think that's my comfort word for this piece of content. This button does exactly the same for both of these lights, and the function button on this one again does exactly the same. So long press, that turns it on, or that's a shortcut to the turbo. I can click it, and then we've got the moonlight mode. You can also see that this does need to be charged as well, so there is a battery light warning on that to say that your battery is getting quite low. Double press for on, and then I can scroll, so I've got low, medium and high once it's on there, and then if I long press to turn it off, I can do 1, 2, 3 to turn it onto the strobe mode, and that will do your varying strobes. With this being the ultraviolet version, there are two versions of this one as well. So there is the E3 ultraviolet, and there is the E3 red. The E5 ultraviolet and the E5 red. This is the ultraviolet version. Or at least let's take it back a step. The red version, these LEDs shine with as red, so if you needed to use this as a signal, maybe clip it onto your backpack whilst you're walking so that you can be seen on the road, then you can do that. But on this version, rather than having the red lights, if I press this once, hopefully there you'll be able to see that one of these LEDs has lit up, and then if I press it again, then both of the LEDs, and it also shines up a little bit brighter. So if you needed maybe to use this, you're out doing some camping, or maybe you're reading, you can do whatever it is that you need to do, and you know it's all there whilst this is on, and you can it's actually quite a serviceable light if you need to use it like that. And then a long press, and that will then turn that light mode off. The ultraviolet, if you want to get access to that, you do 1, 2, and then the ultraviolet light will turn on. So if you need to maybe use this to check bills, you need to check banknotes, or certain things that have something on there that appears with ultraviolet, it's very good for that. It's also really good if you want to charge up the glow in the dark as well. You put on the ultraviolet mode, and it will give that a good charge too. Now what I'll do is, so as far as the lumen levels from these, I mean, these really aren't massive super powerhouses of light. These generally are used for EDC, and they really do sit perfectly within your pocket. But when you bring them out and you want to shine out, if you're using this as a searchlight for search and rescue, I mean, you're gonna struggle, because we're talking about 700 lumens being thrown out from these. Really, these are perfect for trying to find your keys, trying to find something in your car. Hopefully you can see here, so this is my sitting room. While I've been talking, I've just been cycling through low, medium and high, and moving around a bit so that you can get a good kind of impression of what you can see inside a building. If you wanted to walk, I have done some walking with the dogs with these on the medium mode. They're actually really quite good. 100 lumens is 100 lumens, and it's still a serviceable amount of light for you to be able to walk around and not bump into things. When I'm in my house, I tend to find that moonlight and low are just fine. I live in an area where it does get quite dark at night, as I suppose we all do. I mean that there's not a lot of light pollution outside, but really, for an EDC light like these, they're just perfect for trying to find things inside your house. Now, I really do think Rovyvon have done it again. I think this is the reason why I think, for me, Rovyvon really are on top of their game when it comes to these style multifunctional flashlights. They seem to be slightly ahead of the trend of certain others. Now, again, if it is that I've missed some lights that you'll go, no, well, actually, I think you'll find that this was, then feel free. I'd certainly like to hear in the bottom. I'm always interested to see different lights and certainly learn about the history of that sort of stuff. But again, I just think that they're doing something special with their lights. Of the three it has to be the E5, mainly because I love the A5 so much. If they did a larger version, I don't know how they could do that, but if it was something similar to maybe like the A28, but again, I'm not really sure how that would work. I think this is probably, I'm rambling on a little bit here, I think this is probably the right form, size and features for this. But yeah, absolutely love these lights and highly recommend checking them out. Now, as I usually do, I leave the links in the description below, and you can find more about Rovyvon and where to pick these up. And I'll also leave some of my social media links as well, so that you can, you know, see all the daft stuff that I'm up to. Generally tend to be on Instagram a little bit more than I'm on Facebook or anywhere else, but I am trying to put more in here on YouTube to try and build my community primarily again through YouTube. You might have noticed that there's a few more shorts recently. YouTube seemed to be really kind of pushing creators to do those, even though I'm not a massive fan of the short format stuff. I much prefer stuff like this, mainly because I get to ramble like this to you guys and you get to see my beautiful face. Oh please. Anyway, as usual, for now, stay safe, stay Moorlander, and stay EDC. For now, stay safe, stay Moorlander, and stay EDC. I am pretty though, aren't I? I'm not riddled, crippled with self-doubt. So ugly. I'm not. I'd like to say at this point, I'd like to thank you for, that was a hiccup, it wasn't a burp, I promise. But I'd like to say thank you for either liking or subscribing. It certainly means a lot to my channel. Okay, now let's turn the camera around and take a closer look. I promise it wasn't a burp. It might have looked like a burp, it wasn't, it was a strange hiccup. I've just had a cup of tea. It's a nice cup of tea. Anyway. Yes. Let's go up a wee bit. Wee. Beautiful. Hey. Shoot. Hi, I'm the Moorlander, and I need to do a big breath in because I breathe out too much sometimes. Hi, I'm the Moorlander and this is Moorlander EDC. Now, I've been excited to bring you this for